They say a single wrong step can ruin your life. But what if one mistake could save it? Imagine a young mother, worn down by bills, staring at her crying baby with nothing left in the fridge. In the middle of the night, she sends a desperate text, $40, just enough for formula. But the message goes to the wrong number. 3 minutes later, her phone buzzes with a $5,000 deposit. From a billionaire she's never met. Why would a man like that answer a stranger's plea? What did he see in her words that no one else ever cared to notice? And how far could one wrong number really take her? Stay with this story, share your thoughts in the comments, and if it stirs something in you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because what happens next will make you question fate itself. In a cramped apartment on the edge of Dallas, Emily Carter sat at a chipped kitchen table, the glow of a dying light bulb casting shadows across the room. Her baby boy Liam wailed from the crib, his cries sharper than any blade. She rocked her knee, biting her lip until it bled, whispering, "I'm sorry, baby. Mummy's trying." Her phone screen lit her pale face as she scrolled through contacts, hesitating at her brother's number. Pride had kept her silent for weeks, but Liam's hollow cries broke through. Her thumbs tapped out the words, "Can you send me $40? Liam needs formula. I'll pay you back." She hit send, closed her eyes, and let her head fall against her arm, exhausted. Seconds turned into minutes. No reply. Then her phone vibrated, once, then again. A notification blinked on the cracked screen. Deposit received. $5,000. Emily blinked, rubbed her eyes, convinced she was dreaming. Her heart raced as she opened her banking app. There it was, real numbers staring back at her. Before she could breathe, another ping, a text message. "Your baby will not go hungry tonight." Her hand trembled so hard she nearly dropped the phone. Who was this? She hadn't sent her brother's account. She had misdialed. Emily rushed to the crib, scooping Liam into her arms, pressing her cheek against his soft hair. Tears streamed down as she whispered, "We're okay, baby. We're okay." Yet fear mingled with relief. Who on earth sends $5,000 to a stranger? She stared at the screen. The name above the message simply read, Ethan Ross. The billionaire she'd seen only on magazine covers, the man with eyes that seemed to know too much. And now, he knew her.
The knock came early, sharp against the thin wooden door, pulling Emily from a restless half-sleep. Liam stirred in his crib, his tiny fists clutching at the air. She shuffled to the entrance, her heart still heavy with the impossible numbers glowing in her bank account. When she pulled the door open, a deliveryman in a dark jacket stood there, arms straining around a stack of boxes. He asked for her by name, then nudged the pile into her apartment. The scent of cardboard and baby powder filled the room. Emily's breath caught as she tore the first box open. Inside, rows of formula cans gleamed under the weak light. Another box overflowed with diapers, soft blankets, bottles, and tiny socks with cartoon bears stitched at the toes. She touched them as though they might vanish if she blinked too hard. Liam's cries softened when she scooped him up and pressed his cheek against the warm fabric of a brand-new onesie. She found an envelope tucked under the packing slip, its surface thick and cream-colored. In neat handwriting it read, "For Liam." Emily opened it with shaking fingers. The note inside was only a single line. No child should go hungry. E.R. She froze, her mind racing. Those initials. She'd typed them into her phone the night before, desperate to confirm what she already feared. Ethan Ross, the billionaire whose face had appeared on magazine covers and TV interviews, the man who built a tech empire from nothing. Her pulse hammered as she set the note on the table. Why her? Why answer her? She searched her phone, typing his name again into Google, scrolling through articles filled with words like enigmatic, elusive, ruthless, images of his sharp jawline, his eyes cold and unreadable. She remembered the text, "Your baby will not go hungry tonight." He hadn't asked for her name. He already knew it. He hadn't asked about her child. He wrote to Liam as if they were connected by something more than chance. The room felt smaller with every passing second. Emily held Liam closer, her knuckles white around his tiny body. Was she being watched? Was this a gift or a chain? She walked to the window and pushed aside the curtain. Across the street, the city buzzed like any other morning. Neighbors hurried to work, cars passed in a blur. Nobody looked her way. Yet she could not shake the feeling that eyes were on her somewhere. She sat back at the table, the formula cans stacked high like towers of salvation and suspicion. Her phone buzzed again. A simple message glowed against the cracked screen. Use what you need. More will come. No signature this time, but she didn't need one. Emily whispered into the silence, as if testing the sound of his name. Ethan Ross. The syllables tasted unreal. Liam cooed softly in her arms, as though comforted by a presence neither of them could see. Emily closed her eyes and whispered back to him, "We're not alone anymore." But the weight of that truth pressed heavier than she dared admit.
Emily sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the note still lying on the kitchen table. The letters ER burned into her thoughts like fire. She tried to push it aside, but her phone vibrated once more. This time it wasn't a message, it was a call. The number was private. Her chest tightened as she pressed answer. A voice, calm and low, filled the silence. "Emily Carter? My name is Ethan Ross." Her throat closed, unable to form words. He didn't wait. "I want you to come to RossTech headquarters tomorrow morning. Bring your son. A driver will be outside your building at 9. The line went dead before she could breathe a reply. Sleep never came that night. She sat by Liam's crib, watching him stir, watching the pale light of dawn creep across the blinds. By 9, a sleek black SUV idled outside her crumbling apartment complex. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains as Emily carried Liam down the steps, clutching the diaper bag like a shield. The driver, in a crisp suit, opened the door without a word. She slid in, her heart pounding against her ribs as the city rolled past, glass towers replacing cracked sidewalks. RossTech headquarters loomed like a fortress of steel and glass. The car swept past security gates and into a private entrance. Inside, the air hummed with quiet efficiency. Emily held Liam close as she stepped into the marble lobby. A tall woman in a tailored navy dress approached with a practiced smile. "Miss Carter, welcome. My name is Ava. Mr. Ross is expecting you." Ava's voice was warm, but her eyes sharp, assessing. She gestured for Emily to follow. They moved through sleek corridors where employees turned to stare but quickly looked away. Ava led her into a quiet wing. The doors opened to a nursery unlike anything Emily had ever seen. Sunlight streamed through wide windows onto soft rugs and rows of toys. A crib stood ready, draped with a pale blue blanket. Emily froze in the doorway, her lips trembling. This is for Liam?" Ava nodded. "Mr. Ross wanted to be sure you felt safe here." She lowered her son into the crib, her hands shaking as he settled into the cushions, gurgling softly. She turned, and there he was. Ethan Ross stood in the threshold, tall, shoulders straight in a charcoal suit, his expression unreadable. His gaze flicked from Liam to Emily. For a moment, silence stretched, heavy and unspoken. Then he said quietly, "I don't do charity. I invest in people. I believe you have something this company needs." Her words cut through her fear like a blade through glass. Emily felt the ground shift beneath her. The world had turned upside down in less than a day. She had walked into this place as a stranger, clutching her child, terrified of judgment. Now she stood face to face with a man who could change everything. She whispered, almost to herself, "Why me?" Ethan's eyes didn't soften, but his answer came steady. "Because you asked when no one else dared. That matters more than you think.
Emily's first morning at RossTech began with trembling hands and a heart that refused to slow. Ava led her to a small office, a desk tucked near a wall of glass overlooking the city. A computer screen blinked awake, waiting for her login. She glanced back at the nursery, just down the hall. Through the window she saw Liam sleeping under the soft blue blanket, watched over by a caregiver in white. Relief brushed her nerves, but only for a moment. She had work to do. The files she opened were endless lines of numbers and transactions. Vendor names, purchase orders, approvals stamped without hesitation. She clicked through one after another, her brow furrowing. Something didn't feel right. Payments scattered across departments, each small enough to escape notice, yet together forming patterns too deliberate to ignore. She leaned closer, her fingers tightening on the mouse. It was like someone had broken a mirror and hidden the pieces across the system, hoping no one would notice the shards. Hours passed unnoticed until a voice startled her. Ethan Ross stood at the doorway, hands clasped behind his back, eyes on the screen. "What do you see?" Emily froze, unsure whether to speak. He stepped closer, his presence filling the room. "If something feels off, say it. Don't look away." Her throat was dry, but the words escaped anyway. "There are payments that don't add up, different departments, same vendors. It's like someone is keeping them just under the threshold." Ethan studied her, then nodded slowly. "Exactly what I feared." Emily felt a chill crawl up her spine. She looked back at the numbers, the shapes they formed in her mind. It was bigger than mistakes. It was intention. She turned to Ethan, searching his face. "What do you want me to do?" His reply came firm, almost like an order. "You report only to me, no one else. If you find a thread, you pull it until the whole thing unravels, and until then, you say nothing." His eyes darkened. "Trust me when I say, the wrong person hearing this could end everything." He left as quietly as he came, the door shutting with a soft click. Emily stared at the screen, her pulse racing, her palms damp. She thought of Liam in the next room, sleeping without worry. She thought of the groceries stacked in her apartment, the money in her account, the note signed with initials. For the first time, she understood the weight of what she had stumbled into. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began typing furiously. She opened spreadsheets, cross-checked dates, highlighted names. Each keystroke was a step deeper into something she couldn't yet see the bottom of. Her chest tightened with fear, but also with something else. Determination. The kind that rises when there is no choice but to move forward. Emily whispered under her breath, not to Ethan, not even to herself, but to Liam asleep down the hall. "I'll find the truth, no matter what it costs."
Emily's eyes blurred from staring at the glow of the monitor, but she refused to step away. The trail of numbers had led her deeper, and now the path grew darker. She scrolled through a chain of vendor accounts, each more suspicious than the last, until one name stopped her cold. Metroline Solutions. The invoices looked clean, almost too clean, but the payment history carried a rhythm that didn't belong. Every approval came from different department heads, yet the device ID used to log the entries was the same. One machine, one shadow moving through borrowed credentials. Her pulse quickened. This wasn't carelessness, it was orchestration. She scribbled the name on a notepad, circling it until the ink tore the page. Metroline Solutions, Delaware. She whispered it aloud, the sound foreign in the silent office. Liam shifted faintly in the nursery down the hall, a soft reminder of why she couldn't walk away now. Footsteps echoed outside. Emily snapped her laptop half closed, heart racing, as Ava stepped in with a calm smile. "Coffee break? You've been at it for hours." Emily forced a polite nod, hiding the note beneath a folder. Ava's eyes lingered on the desk for a moment too long before she turned and left. Emily exhaled sharply, her hand trembling as she pulled the folder back out. Something told her she wasn't the only one watching. She dug deeper into Metroline. The address traced back to a vacant office building.
No website, no employees listed, only a string of payments feeding through like veins of stolen gold. She followed the money further, out to shell companies stacked one on another, a house of cards waiting for the right push. Her breathing grew shallow. Whoever built this web knew the system inside out, and they weren't afraid of anyone finding out. Until now. Her phone buzzed suddenly, nearly making her drop it. A new message appeared from an unknown number. "Be careful where you look." The words froze her in place. She locked the screen instantly, panic flashing in her chest. How did they know? Had someone seen her tracing the trail? She glanced around the room, every shadow suddenly heavy, every corner watching. Emily pressed her palms flat on the desk, grounding herself. She reached for the keyboard again, quicker now, her fear burning into determination. The logins tied to Metroline weren't random. They belonged to senior managers across divisions, but all at times when those managers were out of office. Ghost credentials. A phantom using their authority as a mask. The evidence was fragile, a thin thread dangling over fire, but Emily knew she couldn't stop. She saved the files to a hidden drive, tucking it deep in her bag before shutting down the system. As she stood, her knees nearly buckled. She lifted her gaze toward the glass wall, the Dallas skyline flickering in neon beyond. Someone was pulling strings at the highest level, and she had just tugged the wrong one. Clutching the drive to her chest, Emily whispered to herself, steady and certain, "Whoever you are, I'm not afraid of ghosts."
Ethan's office stretched wide, the skyline of Dallas glittering through the windows behind him, but Emily barely noticed the view. She laid the hidden drive on his desk, her hands stiff with tension. Ethan studied her face before reaching for it. His jaw tightened as he plugged it into his own machine. Lines of code, spreadsheets, and login logs filled the screen. He scrolled in silence, his brow darkening with every new line uncovered. Finally, he looked up. Metroline Solutions. I knew it wasn't real, but this... He pointed at the screen, his voice sharp. One device, cycling through credentials of half my senior staff. Whoever did this isn't sloppy. They're inside. At the top. Emily swallowed hard, her throat dry. You think it's the CFO? Ethan didn't answer immediately, but the stillness in his expression was enough. Martin Hale, he said at last, low and certain. He's been cutting departments, consolidating control, moving people where he wants them. I thought it was strategy. Now I see the truth. He's been clearing the way. Emily's chest tightened. She pictured the man from photos online. Silver hair, eyes shark like glass, a smile that never reached them. What if he knows we're looking? She whispered. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. He knows. That text you received was no coincidence. They're watching, which means we have to move first. He tapped the desk with 2 fingers, decisive. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Boardroom 3. Martin will be there. So will the rest of the leadership team. I'll bring this. He held up the drive. And I want you watching the feed from the control room. If he slips, if he makes one mistake, I need you to see it. Emily's stomach turned. You want me there, against him? Ethan's tone sharpened. He won't expect you. That's why you'll be valuable. You see what others ignore. You don't play their games, and that terrifies men like him. The room fell silent. Beyond the glass, the city shimmered under twilight. But in the office, the air felt heavy, pressing down on both of them. Emily folded her arms across her chest, fighting the fear rising inside. She thought of Liam, safe in the nursery, unaware of the storm building around them. Ethan stood, adjusting his cufflinks, his voice steady as stone. Tomorrow decides everything. If we fail, Martin takes the company, the board, maybe even the law. If we succeed, his eyes softened just slightly, then RossTech has a chance to survive, and so do you. Emily exhaled slowly, her pulse hammering in her ears. The weight of it settled into her bones, but beneath the fear was something else: resolve. She nodded, her voice a whisper but unwavering. "Then I'll be ready." Ethan gave the faintest trace of a smile, rare and fleeting, before turning back to the window. The city lights reflected in the glass, but both of them saw only the shadow of the battle waiting at 10 o'clock. The boardroom clock ticked toward 10 as silence pressed against the walls of RossTech. Emily sat alone in the control room, eyes fixed on the live feed. Multiple screens lit her face, each showing the long mahogany table, the city glittering beyond floor-to-ceiling glass. Men and women in tailored suits filed in, their voices a low murmur. At the head of the table, Ethan Ross waited, shoulders squared, gaze locked on the door. It opened, and Martin Hale walked in like he owned the air itself. His silver hair gleamed beneath the lights, his smile practiced and thin. He placed his folder on the table, scanning the room before settling his eyes on Ethan. "So," he drawled, "we're wasting everyone's time this morning?" The room stilled. Ethan remained unmoved. He tapped the drive beside him. "I'd call it protecting a company from betrayal." Gasps rippled across the room as screens flickered to life. Ethan projected the files Emily had uncovered. Vendor lists, duplicate payments, ghost logins. The numbers filled the walls like a storm of evidence. Ethan's voice cut through. "These are transactions funneled into Metroline solutions. They trace back to a single machine. That machine is yours, Martin." Martin leaned back in his chair, unfazed. He gave a dry laugh. "Ha! You bring me spreadsheets. Anyone could fake this. And even if it were true, do you think this board cares? Perception matters more than truth. And right now, the perception is that you've lost control." He turned slowly, sweeping his gaze over the directors. "RossTech is bleeding because our CEO brought in a charity case to run our books. A woman who begged for handouts in the middle of the night. And this is your proof? A desperate mother's suspicions?" Emily's fists clenched in the control room. Her breath shook, but she didn't look away. On the feed, Ethan leaned forward, voice steady. "Watch yourself, Martin. Insulting her doesn't erase your crimes." Martin stood, his shadow falling across the table. "Crimes? No. Strategy. I've consolidated power because this company needs leadership, not pity projects. I've already spoken with 3 of the board. If we put it to a vote, Ethan, you're out by the end of the week. And when you're gone, she's gone too." He jabbed a finger toward the ceiling camera, toward Emily, though he couldn't see her. The directors exchanged uneasy glances. Some whispered, others shifted in their chairs. Tension snapped through the room like electricity. Emily gripped the edge of the console, heart hammering. Ethan remained still, then finally rose. His voice carried steel. "Then let's not wait for the week. If you're so sure, Martin, let's put it to the vote right here, right now." A heavy silence fell, broken only by the hum of the projector. Martin's smile faltered for just an instant. Emily saw it, the crack in his armor. She leaned closer to the screen, her pulse racing. The battle for RossTech had begun, and nothing would be the same when the clock struck 11. The boardroom emptied in fragments, voices hushed and nervous, but Martin walked out tall, his smile lingering like poison in the air. Ethan didn't speak as he gathered the drive from the table, his expression carved from stone. Emily waited in the hall, her chest tight, her mind spinning with the sound of Martin's words echoing through the feed. Ethan only nodded to her once. "Follow me." He led her through a side corridor, past locked glass doors, down into a secured wing Emily had never seen. At the end of the hall, a heavy door opened to reveal a room lined with monitors and coded servers. Waiting inside was a woman with sharp eyes and a folder tucked beneath her arm. She looked up as they entered. Ethan's voice dropped low. "Emily, this is Clara Jensen, former federal investigator. She's here because men like Martin never cover their tracks as well as they think." Clara's gaze swept over Emily, measuring, then softened slightly. "You found the trail. That means you see what most people miss." Emily shifted under the weight of her stare, but she didn't look away. Clara spread documents across the table, invoices and login stamps. "We bait him," she said plainly. "We plant a memo suggesting a surprise audit of executive-level vendors, something he can't resist tampering with. If he moves, we'll have the proof in real time." Emily's pulse quickened. The risk was enormous. What if he doesn't take the bait? Clara's mouth curved faintly. He will. Arrogance always does. Ethan placed a hand on the table, steady, decisive. "Then we do it tonight. By morning, I want him cornered." Hours bled into night as they worked under the glow of screens. Emily typed up the fabricated memo, her fingers moving with a strange steadiness. Clara embedded a silent trigger that would track any unauthorized access. Ethan read each word, his approval unspoken but felt. At midnight, the memo went live in the system. Emily sat back, staring at the clock, her stomach twisting. The first ping came less than an hour later. Clara leaned forward, eyes narrowing. He's in. The log scrolled across the screen. Unauthorized access flagged. Martin's ID. His machine. His fingerprints smeared across the trap they had set. Emily covered her mouth, her breath catching as she watched it unfold. He was trying to delete files, rewriting timestamps, but every keystroke only tightened the noose. Clara printed the report in silence, the sound of the machine sharp in the tense air. She handed it to Ethan. "There it is. Enough to bury him." Ethan took the pages, his jaw set. He turned to Emily, his voice measured. "Tomorrow, we bring this to the board. But understand, he'll come harder now. He knows we're after him." Emily nodded, her fear tempered by fire. She thought of Liam, sleeping in the nursery upstairs, unaware of the storm gathering below. Her voice came quiet but steady. "Then let him come. We're ready."
The sun had barely risen when RossTech's headquarters came alive with whispers. An emergency notice blinked across every employee's inbox. By order of the CEO, a press statement would be released at noon. The hallways buzzed with speculation, but in the boardroom, the tension was different. Ethan stood at the head of the table, Clara on one side, Emily seated quietly on the other, her fingers folded tight in her lap. A thick folder of evidence lay open between them, each page carrying the weight of truth. The directors filed in one by one, their eyes darting, their voices clipped. Martin Hale entered last, his smile wider than ever, as though the outcome were already decided. He adjusted his tie, setting down his briefcase with a deliberate thud. "Another performance, Ethan? This one better than the last?" His tone dripped with contempt. Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, Clara slid the report across the table. Screens lit up again, but this time there was no debate. The logs appeared, clear and damning. Martin's access to the system at midnight, his attempts to erase data, his fingerprints left on every action. The directors leaned forward, brows furrowed, lips tightening. Ethan's voice cut through the murmurs. "You thought you could rewrite history, Martin, but the system recorded every keystroke. This company isn't bleeding by chance. It's because of you." Martin's face twitched, but the smile stayed. He rose to his feet, slamming his palm on the table. "Fabrications! A trap! Anyone could have set this. And you dare use her?" He pointed toward Emily, his voice sharp. "A woman who begged strangers for scraps now decides the fate of RossTech? This is a circus." Emily met his glare through the glass, her voice steady, though her hands trembled under the table. "No, Mr. Hale. This is the truth you tried to bury, and truth has a way of digging itself back out." For a heartbeat, the room went silent. The director's eyes shifted, some widening, some narrowing, but none looked away. The chairwoman, Margaret Cole, tapped her pen once on the table, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke. "We've seen enough. We will vote." The words cracked the air like thunder. Hands raised, one after another, until the result was undeniable. Suspension, effective immediately. Martin Hale removed from all duties pending federal investigation. Security stepped forward. Martin's bravado faltered, his voice breaking into curses as the guards took him by the arms. He fought against them, shouting promises of revenge, threats against anyone who sided with Ethan. His words echoed uselessly off the glass walls as he was dragged from the room. The board sat in silence. Margaret closed the folder with finality. RossTech moves forward without him. She turned to Ethan, then glanced briefly at Emily. "You chose well." Emily exhaled, her lungs burning as though she had been holding her breath for hours. Through the glass, she saw the reflection of herself cradling Liam in her memory, the moment that had brought her here. The storm had broken, but she knew the real rebuilding had only just begun.
The days that followed moved like a blur. But for Emily, each one carried the weight of a new beginning. The whispers in the corridors of RossTech no longer carried suspicion. They carried her name. She stepped into the office that had once belonged to a director twice her age, the title etched on the door now reading Director of Internal Audit. Papers stacked high, reports arriving by the hour. But Emily faced them with a steadiness she never knew she had. Through the glass, she could see the nursery where Liam slept peacefully, safe within walls she once feared she would never cross. On her first official morning, the board assembled once more, but the tone was different. No raised voices, no accusations. Margaret Cole addressed the room with firm clarity. RossTech survives because we chose transparency. We survive because some dared to speak when silence was easier. Her eyes flicked toward Emily, lingering for a moment before moving on. Ethan sat quietly at the head of the table, his gaze lowered, but Emily felt the unspoken acknowledgement. After the meeting, Ethan found her alone in the quiet of her new office. He studied the stacks of files, the photographs of Liam she had placed on the desk. "You're certain about this? It won't be easy." Emily met his eyes, her voice steady. "Nothing has been easy, but at least now the fight is worth it." For a moment, silence lingered. Then Ethan placed a small framed photo on her desk. It was the printout of her first message, the desperate text that started it all, now preserved like a relic. "Sometimes," he said softly, "a wrong number is the only right beginning." That night, Emily returned to her new apartment. It wasn't extravagant, but it was hers. Warm light spilling over the walls, the fridge stocked, the nursery filled with toys Liam would soon outgrow. She held her son close, humming as he drifted into sleep. She thought of the kitchen table where she once begged for $40 and how a stranger's choice had reshaped everything. She stepped onto the balcony, the Dallas skyline glowing like fireflies across the horizon. The wind lifted her hair as her eyes welled with quiet tears. Not tears of fear, but of gratitude, of strength she hadn't known. Her voice broke the night air in a whisper meant only for herself. "We made it, Liam, and we'll keep making it." Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from Ethan. No commands, no evidence, no instructions. Just 4 words. "Let's build new promises." Emily smiled, her heart swelling. She typed nothing in return,
Some answers live better in silence, in the choices yet to come. And to those listening, her story leaves a question lingering in the dark. How many lives could change if we chose to see the pleas no one else hears? Remember this, every wrong turn might hide the doorway to something greater. If this story touched you, share it. If you believe in second chances, let others know. And if you want more stories that remind us of what truly matters, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us.